Vulcano is a small volcanic island in the Tyrrhenian Sea, about 25 kilometers north of Sicily and the southernmost of the Aeolian Islands. It is 21 square kilometers in area, rises to 499 meters above sea level, and contains several volcanic centers, including one of 4 active non-submarine volcanoes in Italy. History. The Romans used the island mainly for raw materials, harvesting wood and mining alum and sulfur. This was the principal activity on the island until the end of the 19th century. When the Bourbon rule collapsed in 1860, a British man named James Stevenson bought the northern part of the island, built a villa, reopened the local mines and planted vineyards for grapes that would later be used to make Malmsey wine. Stevenson lived on Vulcano until the last major eruption on the island, in 1888. The eruption lasted the better part of 2 years, by which time Stevenson had sold all of his property to the local populace, and never returned to the island. The villa is still intact. Geology. The volcanic activity in the region is largely the result of the northward moving African plate meeting the Eurasian plate. There are 3 volcanic centers on the island. At the southern end of the island are old stratovolcano cones, Monte Aria, Monte Saraceno and Monte Lucia, which have partially collapsed into the Vulcano caldera. The most recently active center is the Grand Crater at the top of the fossa cone. The cone having grown in the Lancia caldera in the middle of the island, and has had at least 9 major eruptions in the last 6,000 years. At the north of the island is Vulcanello, 123 meters high, connected to the rest of it by an isthmus which is flooded in bad weather. It emerged from the sea during an eruption in 183 BC as a separate islet. Occasional eruptions from its 3 cones with both pyroclastic flow deposits and lavas occurred from then until 1550, the last eruption creating a narrow isthmus connecting it to Vulcano. Vulcano has been quiet since the eruption of the fossa cone on 3 August 1888 to 1890, which deposited about 5 meters of pyroclastic material on the summit. The style of eruption seen on the fossa cone is called the Vulcanian eruption, being the explosive emission of pyroclastic fragments of viscous magmas caused by the high viscosity preventing gases from escaping easily. This eruption of Vulcano was carefully documented at the time by Giuseppe Mercalli. Mercalli described the eruptions as explosions sounding like a cannon at irregular intervals. As a result, Vulcanian eruptions are based on this description. A typical Vulcanian eruption can hurl blocks of solid material several hundreds of meters from the vent. Mercalli reported blocks from the 1888 to 1890 eruption fell in the sea between Vulcano and Lipari. Several were photographed by him or his assistants that had fallen on the island of Vulcano. Mythology. The ancient Greeks named the island Erysia and Temesa. The island appeared in the myths as the private workshop of the Olympian god Hephaestus, protector of the blacksmiths. He owned another 2 at Etna and Olympus. Strabo also mentions Thermessa as sacred place of Hephaestus, but it is not clear if it was a third name for the island, or just an adjective. Similarly, the Romans believed that Vulcano was the chimney of the god Vulcan's workshop and therefore named the island after him. The island had grown due to his periodic clearing of cinders and ashes from his forge. The earthquakes that either preceded or accompanied the explosions of ash were considered to be due to Vulcan making weapons for Mars and his armies to wage war. Science. Since Vulcano Island has volcanic activity, this island is a place where thermophiles and hypothermophiles are likely to be found. In fact, the hypothermophilic Archaeopyrococcus furiosus was described for the first time when it was isolated from sediments of this island by Gerhard Fiala and Karl Stetter.